And I had the fingernails, long hair, and so on. And I was trying to convince people I was 80 years old and dying. And one of the casting directors, in fact, the principal casting director of the Star Wars saga, Mary Selway, wonderful woman, sadly no longer with us, she saw that performance. And as a result of that, I'm now sort of talking retrospectively, she had mentioned my name to George. And at that time, they cast the Emperor. They got someone who was closer to the age of the guy than I was. But unfortunately, sadly, because he was a wonderful actor, they couldn't insure him. He couldn't take the yellow eyes. He couldn't take those contact lenses. So one morning I got up as usual. The phone rang. My agent said, George Lucas wants to meet you. There's a car coming shortly. Well, it's already arrived. I look outside the window. That's how George does things. So I got in the car, went into Elstree where they already started filming, met George and Richard Marquand, the director of Return of the Jedi, over 30 years ago now. And we had a nice chat about this and that, you know, nothing special. And I thought, well, you know, whatever the part was, because no one mentioned what it might be, I haven't got it, but it's nice. I've met two interesting artists. I met George Lucas. And as I was going out the door, George said, "Hey, great to see you. What a nose!"
Whatever did he mean?
I know, exactly. Not many people say that. And I suddenly thought, oh, well, this is clearly a part about a nose. And maybe I've got it. Well, when I got back, the phone was ringing again, and it was my agent to tell me that I had got the part. And I said, well, that's great, but what is the part? And he leafed through his notes, you know, the way agents do, one after another. And he said, oh, it's called The Emperor of the Universe. So I said, well, I guess I'll be doing it then. Here I am. It's brilliant.
At that time, you were 30 years old, playing a much older character.
Correct.
How old was the Emperor?
He was about 120. We were never specific, you know, but he was about that, yeah.
And then, how did you feel about going back to that character for the prequels, but kind of then he was your age at that point?
I know. It was a very, very strange reversal. So when I was in my late 30s, I was playing 120. And because I was sort of 50-ish, like the age that Palpatine needed to be in order to later become whatever it was, 120 or so, I was the right age to continue in the prequels what we'd already established. Now, George didn't have to ask me, but we had another meeting not unlike the first when I went to a hotel this time. And he said, what would you like to drink? And I said, oh, I'll just have a glass of water. And then he said, do you know anyone who wants to play an emperor? I said, well, funny you should mention it. He said, okay, I guess that's you. Give back the water. Just, you know, he's an economist in lots of ways. That was the second time I was asked to rejoin the Star Wars saga. But it was handy that I happened to be the right age, because if it had been a much older actor, then they would have gone for a sort of younger actor. And he didn't tell me that time that there were sort of two parts. Palpatine, the senator, you know, very straightforward politician, you know, doing his best for his country and his queen. And then this other satanic monster sort of lurking underneath his skin. And I only realized, because he said that there's somebody else, you're not the real villain in this, you know, it all changes as the saga goes on. So I felt real disappointment. He said, no, there's this other guy who's in the background. And then I got the scripts with my number and name opposite, and I realized it was me. Wow. So on the very first day of shooting, I had to get my head around the fact that I was Darth Sidious as well as Palpatine. And Liam Neeson at the premiere came up to me and said, hi Ian, nice to see you. Why didn't you tell me that you were Darth Sidious? Well, it didn't occur to me that you wouldn't know, but such is the secrecy on the set that sort of people didn't. And he wasn't in the days I was doing the Emperor and so on. But it was impossible to keep that secret, because anyone with half a brain who'd seen the 3 previous films could work out that eventually it was going to be me. But it was, again, it was just so fortunate that I was the right age then to become the older man once more later.
Now, when you played the Emperor originally,
had now been playing the part and seen this face, he would have certainly accommodated the voice to match. Anyway, it all ended happily because I did get to keep the voice. And it was good because it only arrived, that voice, when I looked in the mirror and saw this monster after 4 hours of makeup at the makeup test. And I thought, well, he looks like a horrible, slimy toad. So I should do my best since I look like one, sound like one. So that was where the idea came from. And got a voice that can go up and down, as you've probably heard. But I've always been fascinated by Japanese actors who, by and large, speak from their stomach. So I tried to train myself to do that a bit. And also the voice I came up with, again, seemed appropriate for Palpatine. Sort of speaks on the potential vomit. Excuse me, you haven't had your tea yet, but sort of comes like that. You know, yes. He doesn't really speak, he retches on a regular basis.
And also, I mean, what you're most famous for is the laugh as well.
Yeah.
It's astonishing.
Yeah. Well, I did about 500 varieties of those, the way you do, you know,
yes.
For George, and he picked about 400 of them, which are scattered throughout the movie. But when you're playing an evil villain, you have to have the evil laugh, you know, just goes. Yeah, so that was it.
It's truly iconic, that laugh. I mean, when you hear it, you immediately know who it is. I mean, it's astonishing. Didn't George, I heard you say, George gave you a direction once.
Yeah.
Play the character as if you're wearing contact lenses.
Yes.
What does that mean? What is he saying?
Well, George is very direct as a director, and that's great, you know. I joke, and it's not true, but I always say this, and he always expects me to say it, that he has 3 directions, which is good, great, go again. And that's about it. But one day, he sort of broke his duck and said to me, I like what you're doing. You should think of Palpatine's face as being the Emperor, the character, Sidious's actual character. Think of it as if Sidious was wearing a mask. And your eyes, i.e., it's complicated, Palpatine's eyes are his contact lenses. And that was really helpful, because I could just think all the time I was doing those scenes, not that you particularly noticed, but now of course you'll go back and have a look, that underneath my real face was this monster, as it were, trying to get out, or trying to stay in there until the time came for him to release himself in his full horror. And that was a great note.
And you had, as Palpatine, you had a lot of different outfits, didn't you?
I did, yes. Every day something turned up, and well, you know, he was the Emperor, so he had the best clothes. Just like any head of state, you can think of the Queen back home in the UK. You never see her in the same hat or the same coat twice, and so he figured that's what people of power did, and it was important that should be suggested. And I think my favourite costume of all was the one you see at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, which is like a skin. It's like being inside a crocodile. It's like a sort of reptile skin. And Tricia Bigger, the wonderful Scottish designer, found this material in Japan, as it happened, and thought it would be perfect for the oily monster, and indeed it was.
Absolutely. Now, of course, you're a hugely experienced actor and have done many, many films and TV series, etc. But what does it mean to you personally to be part of Star Wars? Do you understand the importance of that, especially to people like this here today? Yes, it's still, I mean, it was in the beginning, as I told you, and still is slightly unreal, you know, because, you know, everyone says this, but it's true. I grew up in New Hope, you know, I wasn't a kid then, but I was... you know, part of a generation that loved the film, and the notion that one day that I'd be part of it, and not just part of it, but its dark, evil heart, you know, I couldn't have conceived in a million years. And now I'm kind of used to it, but you sort of have to, when I'm doing other things, I forget about it. And then I come to occasions like this, and I remember, and I see the little sequence before I came on, and all I can think of, my God, my hairpiece looked terrible that day. You know that feeling too, Maura. It's funny to think the Emperor's worried about his hair.
Yes.